Thank you once again for joining Max Easy Lessons. Today we are going to look at Shakespeare's The Tempest, Part 1. And this one is just Part 1 of Part 2. It's on everything that you need to know about The Tempest. Now, Part 2 will also be coming up. And these are both lengthy videos. So I hope you will have the time to stop, watch, find some time to make some notes and stuff. Now, as an introduction, The Tempest is one of William Shakespeare's last original plays. It was written somewhere between 1610 and 1611, and this one is the one that critics have called the final of Shakespeare's plays. It deals with a lot of issues that he would have wanted to show that it is the end of his career. Prospero is that ideal person who he uses the end of Prospero's magic to show that this was the last of his stint as a playwright. Now, the comedy, the Tempest, is more than a comedy. Generally, one will call The Tempest a comedy because there is forgiveness, love, marriage, reconciliation, magic, and happiness. Now, this may be so, but there is also the element of romance, politics, and therefore many people will call it a tragic comedy. In this particular play, there are two young lovers who meet and who fall in love. So, of course, there you will find the romance. There is also the struggle between the original inhabitants of an island and the outsiders that are driven by power and authority and control. One can also note that there are tragic elements such as the attempts of violence and murder against Alonso and Prospero. Still, these are not allowed to take precedence in the play, and the play ends with magic, satire, resolution, compassion, and forgiveness. Now, what is important is that there are many subplots to the overall plot, but all subplots lead to one main plot. In The Tempest here, Shakespeare's main plot is supported by the plots of the play. At the start of the play, we see Prospero seeking revenge. He is isolated by his fellow men on the island, and as such, there is a separation where we see Prospero putting each person into a group, a strategic group that will help him to carry out his plan. Within this play, The Tempest, the readers will see Prospero's revenge. They will also see Antonio's greed for power. There is also Alonso's support for Antonio. There is a love between Ferdinand and Miranda. There is a plot to kill Alonso, the plot to kill Prospero, Caliban and Ariel's request for freedom, and then there is also Prospero's forgiveness and mercy. Now, Antonio's greed for power is what caused him to take control of the dukedom of Milan, and he takes this from his brother. There is a conspiracy which involves Alonso, who is the king of Naples, because he would benefit from seizing the dukedom, and this, of course, would satisfy his selfish desires. The main plot then would be that Prospero is exiled on the island with Miranda, his daughter, and he seeks revenge on the perpetrators who have displaced him as a ruler. He draws on the Tempest storm, and he uses this to create the framework for his revenge. He uses Ariel, who is on the island, one of his servants, and who wants to be freed, to assist him in his quest for revenge against the nobles. The noblemen on the ship include Antonio, Alonso, and his son Ferdinand, along with Sebastian, who is Antonio's brother, Stefano, who is Alonso's brother, and there are others too, and they are all on the shipwreck. Ferdinand becomes separated from his family and the other noblemen, and he sees Miranda for the first time, and he falls helplessly in love with her. During their stay on the island, the men continue to have strong feelings of selfish desires, and this brings to the plot to murder Alonso. This plot is encouraged by Antonio, who seriously convinces Sebastian to kill his brother so that he can take control of the throne. Caliban is also involved in a plot to murder Prospero, since he would also like to regain his freedom on the island. He, of course, attempts to use Stefano to do so, But by the end of the play, Prospero uses his magic to bring all of the characters together so that he can issue or dispatch the justice by merciful means. Now let's take a look at the stages of development in the plot. The first thing we're going to look at is the structure. Although The Tempest is one of Shakespeare's shortest plays, he makes sure that there are 5 acts. And these 5 acts include the crucial events that takes place in chronological order. Second up is the exposition. In Act 1, we see that there is a shipwreck in the process of occurring with noblemen and sailors on board. There is no mistake here too, and there is an understanding of how Prospero came to be on the island. The readers are given a full explanation as to his role in the play and how he gets on the island and the reasons for him seeking revenge. Prospero comes to the island, and we see the history of the island and the functions of both Caliban the monster and Ariel the spirit. We are also introduced to Prospero's daughter Miranda and the missing Ferdinand. As a point, Prospero is revealed as a powerful witch wizard, since he can create storms and cause shipwrecks. We are also shown Miranda and her gentle spirit, which is totally different from Prospero, as she cries out upon viewing the storm and the shipwreck. Then we are introduced to Antonia's greed, which is highlighted through Prospero's explanation to Miranda of how Antonio stole the title of King of Milan and then exiled him from Milan. Gonzalo comes next. He is introduced as a mediator between the noblemen on the ship and the boatswain. Many years later, he provided Prospero with supplies such as food, his books, and clothing when Prospero was left to die after he was exiled. Ariel is also there. Ariel is introduced as a helpful spirit that does Prospero's bidding by creating the storm and separating the men on board into different groups across the islands. Based on all of this, Alonso thinks that Ferdinand is lost to him forever. Now, both sides of Caliban's character are revealed in the first scene. The helpful side, this side surfaces first, and we realize that Caliban is not all that bad, as he makes attempts to help Prospero when Prospero first comes to the island. But Prospero does the things that makes Caliban change in many ways. He tries to control Caliban, and he treats him as a servant, and therefore we see the other side of Caliban that wants to rival Prospero for the ownership of the island. Third up is the rise in action. This section of the play establishes the love relationship between Ferdinand and Miranda and the conspiracies that result in the conflict. Ferdinand, again, is Alonso's son. He meets with Miranda with the direction of Ariel, and of course he falls instantly in love with her, and this occurs in Act 1, Scene 2. Alonso and the other shipmates fall asleep on the Ariel spell, while Sebastian, who is Alonso's brother, while Sebastian is encouraged by Antonio, Alonso's brother, to plot to seize power from Alonso by murdering him. Ariel intervenes in the plot. Caliban then forms a union with Trinculo, the jester, and also Stefano, who is a butler, to take Prospero's life to benefit his personal selfish desires. The climax comes next. Ferdinand and Miranda declare their love for each other. As with the true romance, they declare their love for each other, but Prospero does not allow Miranda to speak to him in order to frustrate the relationship. Prospero has his own desires, and he manipulates the relationship between Miranda and Ferdinand. The plot to murder Prospero continues while Ariel is present. Alonso has lost all hopes of finding his son Ferdinand, even though he has searched the entire island. Antonio, Sebastian, and Alonso are presented with an imaginary banquet by Prospero. Of course, this eventually disappears because Prospero once more uses his magic, and Ariel warns the men about their wrongdoings and the punishment that will come based on their earlier actions. The falling action is next. Prospero consents. He agrees to the marriage of Ferdinand and Miranda in Act 4, Scene 1, and Ariel, of course, is asked to assist in the celebrations of their engagement. Additionally, Prospero puts on his robe and hat as the Duke of Milan, and of course, he now confronts Stefano, Trinculo, and Caliban about the conspiracy to murder him. They are punished, yes, and they are alienated from the others. Finally, it's the resolution. In the resolution, we see Alonso discovering that Ferdinand is still alive, and this happens in Act 5, Scene 1. Miranda and Ferdinand are also united. Prospero overcomes the attempts of treachery by his enemies. Prospero also forgives Antonio and Alonso for their conspiracy against him. Of course, we do not see Antonio's role in the conspiracy, and that is downplayed by Shakespeare. Prospero resumes his position as the Duke of Milan as Antonio gives up his power. Now we also find that Prospero leaves his magic and books on the island, which is a reminder of Shakespeare's exit from the playwright from the world of plays. Caliban repents of his wrongdoings. Together with Stefan and Trinculo, they are sent to decorate Prospero's cell. Ariel gains freedom, and Prospero returns home with his newly extended family. Now there are different subplots within the one story, one play. In The Tempest, Shakespeare, interestingly, creates 3 subplots together. 1 is a plot to kill Alonso, 2 is a plot to murder Prospero, and 3 is that Ferdinand and Miranda and their love scene. In Act 2, Scene 1, Alonso and Sebastian, are not sensitive to Alonso's loss of his son, Ferdinand. Rather, they are quick to blame Alonso for their fate on the island, saying that if he did not agree to the marriage of his daughter to an African, then none of them would have been traveling by sea at that point, so that Prospero could have created that shipwreck. While the other characters are still asleep under Ariel's spell, which the nobles do not know, Antonio and Sebastian plot to take Alonso's life. Sebastian does not need much convincing from Antonio, and this is parallel to Antonio's seizure of power from Prospero. Now they pull out their swords and are about to pounce on Alonso. Ariel awakens Gonzalo at the right time, and the men, of course, give a silly explanation of having heard a strange noise. In Act 3, Scene 3, the characters continue to hold on to their ill feelings towards Alonso, and Sebastian insists on going on with his vendetta to murder Alonso. The plot to murder Prospero is also present. In Act 3, Scene 2, Caliban, Stefano, and Trinculo are drunk. Now Stefano makes Caliban his servant, and he takes on the title of Lord of the Island. You see, once more we see the need to control coming again, and this comes from just about every character in the play. Stefano questions how Prospero can be defeated, and Caliban responds that they must burn Prospero's books, his magic books, and then they could attack him in the afternoon when he was asleep. Caliban further takes the chance, and he encourages Stefano by telling him that when he becomes king of the island, Prospero's daughter, Miranda, can be the queen. Of course, this becomes interesting to Stefano. Now, there is comedy here. The comic element in this plot is observed as Caliban is talking to Stefano. Ariel, who is observing everything, imitates Trinculo by saying, "Thou liest." This, of course, gets Caliban even more angry as he orders Stefano to discipline Trinculo in varying degrees. A comic farce comes about here as a trio. We see the trio here, and we know that with Ariel's presence, the plot cannot continue. The final subplot here is the love plot, and that is between Ferdinand and Miranda. The Ferdinand and Miranda love plot is fast-tracked. After the storm, Ferdinand comes to the island. He meets Miranda, falls helplessly in love. At the onset, Prospero isolates Ferdinand from Miranda in the hopes. Now the love scene continues between Miranda and Ferdinand, even though Prospero tries to separate them, as we said before. Prospero is aware that when the two come together, it would improve his future in Naples and the future between Naples and Milan. Eventually, Prospero presents opportunities for Ferdinand and Miranda to be together. Thank you so much for stopping by. Stay tuned for part 2, which will have much more details on everything you need to know about The Tempest.